Everyone has events in their life that have changed them. I've lived a life that I'm not proud of and one that I'd like to shout from the rooftops. The three main events that affected me in my life were being introduced to a group of people who partied a lot, going to rehab, and meeting my husband. When I was 20, I broke up with my high school boyfriend and was introduced to a group of friends who drank and did drugs. I rekindled a friendship with two girls I had gone to high school with. I hadn't had many friends for the past few years after high school, so I was desperate to fit in. I lost weight, I changed the way I dressed, I began drinking and smoking marijuana with them several times a week, and they introduced me to a group who I eventually became friends with outside of them who more liked party me. Once I became friends with the people who I thought only liked party me, I became that person all of the time. I drank almost every day. I did whatever drugs were around because I was desperate to fit in, so I became them. Although I feel like being introduced to them did more harm than good in the end, I wouldn't change that period of time in my life. I learned retrospectively that I don't need to try to fit in, that they would have accepted me the way that I was. Being friends with them brought me the confidence to make new friends and stop being so quiet. And I'm grateful for that time with them, even though I've moved on from that lifestyle. Drinking and doing drugs with that group of friends eventually led me down a path that I couldn't stop traveling down on my own. I was introduced to heroin. Thought I was snorting cocaine like I'd done many times before. When I snorted heroin for the first time, though, I felt relief from anxiety and living in this body and mind that I'd never felt before. I felt like this is what I'd been searching for. I didn't care about drinking or the acceptance of others almost immediately. I began to search for that relief again after the first time I did it. I kept it under control for the first few months, but I began to spiral pretty quickly after. It took me some time to find someone that I could purchase it from, and not having direct access for the first few months kept it to something that I only did on the weekends. Once I found someone that I could purchase it from directly, I immediately began using every day. It was like this is the only way that I could feel normal, and I spiraled. After a couple of years of spiraling and using heroin every day, my parents finally saw what was going on and offered to send me to rehab. Going to rehab was incredible for me, and it changed my life. I finally received therapy for anxiety and ongoing mental health issues. Getting help for my mental health issues and getting clean made me feel like a worthy human being. And I became someone who could be trusted. I mentored others. I was healing. Going to rehab changed my life for the better. I would never be where I am today without it. I'm a whole person who engages in therapy, is loved and gives loves, and I feel so incredibly lucky. After getting out of rehab, I continued to work on myself, and I began to feel like I was worthy of creating a life that I'd always dreamed of, and decided that I'd eventually like to become a wife and a mother. So after deciding to do that, I created an online dating account. I began to receive messages and wade through profiles, and within the first week, I saw a profile of a man who sparked something in me. After talking for a couple days, we decided to go on our first date. I knew from the first date that he was the one for me. Our first date was perfect. He was funny and interesting and chivalrous. We talked for hours, and I'd never felt a connection like that before. I told him about my history and about the bad choices that I'd made and how I felt guilty for them all of the time. He told me that he didn't care about that, only what I was doing today and what I plan to do tomorrow to make sure that those things didn't happen again. We went on our second date the next day and our third date after that. We saw each other every single day since then. After about a year and a half of being together, he asked me to marry him. We began planning our wedding immediately and were married 3 months after we got engaged. We began trying for a baby shortly after we got married, and getting pregnant was way more difficult than either of us imagined. We tried for years, but finally, after our second round of IVF, I became pregnant, and we now have an 11-month-old. I feel very fortunate to have gone through the trials and tribulations of my 20s and having now met my husband and now being a mom. Everything has been worth it. Every step has led me to the person that I am today. Meeting those people, going to rehab, and meeting my husband. I feel very lucky to be the person I am today and that I'm living this life.